define them as powerful. And so for me, the biggest barrier was realizing that I was doing what society wanted me to do to have power versus leaning into the power that was me as a female, as a woman of color, as the childlike magic that I was meant to be. And then starting to publicly show up that way and expect the same power when I walked into a room, the same respect from the people around me, and the same platforms to still uphold me in the way that they did when I was showing up the other way.
I have absolutely nothing to add to that because I want the room to live with what ADHRUCIA said. It was fantastic.
T has actually been there through my whole journey, so she knows. She saw, she held space, she had lunch, she fixed the problems. This woman is amazing.
Girl power.
Maggie, did you want to add anything?
Girl power.
Maggie, did you want to add anything?
It's going to be me. Okay, I'm actually going to piggyback off that because one of my biggest barriers was being me. When I was I started getting tattoos when I was 16. It was just me. It was a kid thing. But that's who I was. I liked body modification. And I also was smart. And usually in the world, those things were not perceived together. If you look a certain way, you're not intelligent. So when I went to grad school, I did get in looking the way I do. And I had a guidance counselor, career services person. I brought my resume and my cover letter and was like, hey, can you help me? I'm applying for all these internships. And instead of helping me and doing her job, she stood up while I was standing and went, well, first, what are you going to do about this? This movement in front of my body when I was 24 years old, one, made me question myself. Will I ever be able to have a career? Will I ever be able to do the things I want to do looking like this? And the answer was yes, yes. If you just look at me and judge me based on that, all of us on here, if you just look at somebody and judge them, you will never know who they are. You will never know their intelligence. I want a freaking Pulitzer Prize. And you bet that I sent that to her in an email. So, that's always been my barrier, is just looking like me and having people just think I'm some dumb kid, and I think I've proven that wrong, but I'm sure there's still people that look at me like that.
Are you starting to have fun with that now?
I'm having so much fun
Yeah,
with it.
I think so. You're like, what'd you think?
Exactly.
Yeah, we are your turn fun, yeah.
And when we look at change, we're talking about change here and how do we move forward. Through media, entertainment, and arts, how do you feel we can uplift women and deliver equality in a bold, new way? So how do we really create that change that we're looking for?
I think the first thing that we have to do is start doing deals with women.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. Women should not be viewed as your support system to come up with great ideas, to help you filter through great ideas, to broker opportunities, and to be your conduit. You should look to women as your deal makers. Because I think for every woman that's sitting in this room, in one way or the other, you are a kingmaker. Also, as women, I would say that we should be in the space also of not just looking outside of us, but start looking towards one another. What can we do within our respective networks to build, to grow one another? And it's not about waiting to be asked. It is actually physically leaning in and saying, I heard you, ADHRUCIA, I heard you mention the show that you're selling in the Nordic countries. I know X, Y, and Z producer or a distributor that you should be meeting with. And not expecting an ROI, because we don't expect the ROIs from the men that we work with. In some ways, you're just happy that they took your idea. And they will take your idea, and you're never credit for it. So the first thing I'd say is, let's be in business.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of things, and I know a lot of the panels brought this up, but mentoring is a very big thing I believe in, and I didn't have a mentor like you, and I'm like, can someone?
We'll mentor each other,
I need a mentor still today, forever. And so I decided, I'm like, well, I didn't have one, so let me be one. I know what it's like to feel like alone. So let me just be one. I think being a mentor and finding mentorship programs is huge. I also think leveraging your power when you are graduate, I think, I'm only speaking for myself, but I'm sure this is relatable. When you are, I think women, we just are always hustling. And even when we get to the place we want to get, we are still hustling. It's never like, I can relax now. We're just always working, even when we get to where we're trying to go. That we forget that there are people who are now entering the space that you just graduated from. And so leveraging power in those spaces for those women who maybe have more fear to say something, or maybe don't feel like they have power because they're new, and you are the voice who can, now I am over in this space, so I can be the voice for you because I have nothing to lose. I'm not worried about my job. I'm going to help in this room because I have power here. I think that's really big. And then also on what you were saying, like pulling women up the ranks, and sometimes because I think men have always just been given opportunities, and we have to prove our worth to even get the opportunity and our value to get the simple thing that's just given to our male counterparts. And I think pulling up women and giving them positions and working with them and asking them what they need and showing them, or when you don't want passing the baton, like literally handing them opportunities. Here, opportunities, take it. I don't need it, I don't want it, or you should do this and not me, and being women, being allies for other women, I think is just so major. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off that. And yeah, not waiting for them to come to you. I'm a teacher, and I'm a NPR radio mentor 3 times a year. So I go to them. And, I tell them I was once you. I don't try to pretend that I came from somewhere else. I was you. I was a grad student. I was in this fellowship program. I'm here to talk to you about the mental health breakdowns I had. Don't feel weird if you're struggling. It's hard. It's really hard to be in these positions and have so much pressure on you, and also be a woman, like you said. So I think it's really important to seek out those people as well.
I have a new mantra after this year, and it's take the space and make the space. So I ended up on my first location scout of the year, first film for my company earlier this year, and there were a lot of dudes on it. A lot of dudes. And I own the original IP. I optioned it, all these things. I won't get into the details of that set, but at one point I was told that this meeting was not about our feelings. Yes, and this still happens, right, in our industry. And when I realized when I left that, and actually we have a dear friend, Tiffany, who she had a very different experience on a set because it was all female set. And they had meditations and they had group healings before they went on set. And it was a completely different world. And her and I were sitting at lunch. I'm listening to her talk about this set that I dream of. And then I realized I did not take the space and I did not make the space. I was in a driver's seat where when I went to option that film to the other production company, could have said, as the person who owned the most important piece of the thing, the film, I'm happy to work with you, but 50% of our workforce needs to be female. A man would have been happy to say what he needed in that room, and instead I was like, oh, I'm so happy that you're making my movie. And I realized that I was the problem in that situation. I had created the problem. Yes, everybody, there's obvious other problems, but the point is that when we are in these places of power, we need to learn what our male counterparts have known for ages, that it is our responsibility and our right to take the space and then to use that space to make space for others so that we can create the environments that we want.
I want to add to, just tag on to what you're saying, right? I think it actually starts before we get to a space of perceived power. Your power starts the moment that you realize that you have a goal, or you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your life, or I don't know, what dress you're going to choose for it. Like, your power starts, it's a very personal thing. It happens in the quiet moment. It's not about anyone else. And I find that one of the most important things that we as women have to do is change the dialogue that we have with ourselves. In listening to some of the words, it's like, that conscious thought, right? You mentioned in your remarks the idea of proving yourself, to someone, I want you to lose that.
Lost.
Because you don't
Looking
have to
into your
prove
eyes,
yourself
lost.
to anyone, right? But so we program ourselves with all of these narratives that are outside of us, and they subtly start to influence who we are in every space that we show up. It's not just our professional life, but it's also our personal life. And so the experience that you had on that set, yes, you owned all of these external things, but you hadn't owned your power inside. And that's how we have to show up every single day. That's the first breath of the morning, is that affirmation, right?
And let me tell you, it's hard work and it's ongoing work, and I don't know when it ends, but I don't think it ever does. So if you're feeling or listening and like feeling othered in any way that you're not part of this conversation, like it is work I do, we all do every single day when I wake up, because it is so many years of socialization to the other, and then unlearning that, and then putting the space back in for what Tamara just talked about, the way we want to show up in the world.
I love that you mentioned that, ADHRUCIA, because it is constant work that happens from the minute you wake up till the minute you go to sleep. And then I wanted to add, I mentioned this earlier, it's trusting you. Instead of trusting everybody else outside of us, you have to have that intention of trusting you first and then building from there. By the way, really quick, before we close out here, I have one last question. What's your film's name that's streaming right now?
Oh, I have one on HBO Max called The Survivor that was up for an Emmy.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's in my bio somewhere. I got a bunch of rad TV shows and movies coming out this year. So there was a pandemic. There's a little bit of a delay and everything. But it's going to be a good year in storytelling.
Can we get the sneak peek?
Excellent.
Can you tell us behind the scenes?
I have the next show from the writers of Umbrella Academy, the next show from the creator of Fear the Walking Dead with Alcon Television. I've got a television show with Rob Weiss, who did Ballers and Entourage. I got a movie with Anthony McCartan, who did Theory of Everything, Darkest Hour. It's about a Muslim female who comes into her power as a comedian. It's awesome. and I'm sure I forgot. And then the next show from the creator of Ozark and Diplo's next movie. So all of them are looking at culture from a different experience. All of them have female badasses in them. They're all the things that these women collectively stand for and have experienced, and teaching the next generation those things.
Love that. Well, and in teaching the next generation, I'd like to conclude by asking each one of you some words of wisdom, or what would your message be today to young girls that are watching out there? What do you want them to know?
I'll jump in. Yes. So mine would be two things. And it's not actually just to young girls. I think it's really to women in general. Start where you are. First and foremost, everyone has their own race to run in this life. And there will be people that inspire you. You should not allow inspiration to turn into something that diminishes your potential, because you don't know what their gifts or their journey is supposed to be, independent of the course that your life takes. Know that you can always start over. I think, growing up, we were all very much in this space where our parents, for the most part, had one career. You graduated from university, you work this job, to put into that 401k, you retired, and you're like, this is what I do. I have had, I think, 3 careers to this point, from designing, fashion designing on 7th Avenue, to being an agent at William Morris and a manager in entertainment, and now producing a strategic advisory. Each one of those moments, I was empowered to do what I did because I had the skill set and the experience from prior, and I just decided to start from where I was. And once you do that, the second thing that I would say is lock in. The most important thing we will ever do in our lives, whether you are a man or a woman, is to lock into your vision, lock into your dream. Because that single focus, once you start to feel that momentum inside of yourself, it will just catapult you to wherever you want to be. Because not everyone will understand your vision. No one will share the same dream that you have. So those would be my 2.
Thank you.
I think for me, my message would be especially in these times where we are told we have to be a certain way, or we're constantly being bombarded, being sold something, not feeling like just so much external stuff happening around us that it gets us further and further away from who we are and what we know. And my message to anybody, actually, but especially younger generation and females especially, is to harness and to cultivate their intuition. Because I think if you can tap into your intuition, I know that sounds really woo, but it's not. It is your best friend. It is your alarm system. It will never lead you astray. And as long as you have a strong sense of self, you're on your way, and that is the main goal. You know what I mean? Like, everything will fall into place if you have a strong sense of self, and you'll never have regret, because you always followed this, which is, it's all the same. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, so that was similar. I was going to be mine is just be you. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do something because of the way that you are. I mean, maybe if you're a cranky person, just be a little nicer. But, the way you look, do not let anyone tell you. Don't change your hair. Don't cover your tattoo. Those people are not worth it. If they're telling you to change who you are, that's on the outside, not the inside. So I think that's really, really important.
Man, we all have the same message. So let me change that. I think that this has been, for feminism and females in general, just like an interesting time where a lot of messages were sent to us from different spaces. And I think that if I could impart any wisdom onto my girlfriends, the females I know, the females I work with, it's to define femininity in your own way. Find out what is fiercely female to you. It's not always girl boss. It's not always, standing in the power suit and speaking to the big audiences. And it is just as uniquely powerful if it's dancing and creating a career of art. It's just as uniquely powerful if it's supporting in love. And so I would really challenge this generation to lean into being female and to know that that's powerful, and know that you are supported by the girl in you.
Thank you. I want to thank the four of you for this beautiful, dynamic conversation. Again, Tamara Houston, RESHMA GAJJAR, Maggie FRELENG, and ADHRUCIA APANA. Give it up for them. What a dynamic conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.